On a beautiful Texas morning, 80 of the world's best amateur golfers have gathered in East Central Texas, and the beautiful Whispering Pines Golf Club, as the fifth part of the Spirit takes place here at Whispering Pines Golf Club. A gorgeous day awaits us here on a Wednesday, and it should be gorgeous through the rest of the weekend as we have started off on the fifth installment of the Spirit International. And some of the best talent is ready to go to work and try and make as many birdies as possible in a very fun and entertaining format. Well, we've been blessed with great weather and, as always, blessed with some great company here from our broadcast center above the 10th hole here at Whispering Pines. Will Haskett alongside Mark Lash and Jeff Morton. Always a very exciting tournament. We are so pleased to be here at the Spirit International this year and glad that you could join us online for our web stream. Lots of coverage for you today all the way through the weekend, probably about 5 to 6 hours of live golf coverage here from Whispering Pines. Mark, it's good to see you again. It's been a long time since the NCAA Championships back in May, and Jeff, glad to have you on board. A very exciting tournament, and the format, and Jeff, having been the lead rules official here for 3 of the past of these, a very exciting format in the best ball to bring these players together and let them be aggressive on a golf course that can really open up to some birdies.
As you pointed out there, Will, it is a fun format, and the emphasis on birdies. An absolutely wonderful day here at Whispering Pines and an absolutely wonderful golf course. The 4-ball stroke play format does lend itself to some strategy. You've got 3 competitions going, the men's, the women's, and, of course, the international. So be interesting to see over the next 4 days how the teams gel together. Some of these have not played a lot of competitive golf as teammates, so that'll be very interesting as we watch the championship over the next 4 days.
And for those of you who are maybe unfamiliar with the Spirit and its format, it is a 4-person team, 2 women and 2 men, the best amateur players from the respective countries. 20 countries are here at Whispering Pines. That's down from 24 as it has been in some of the past few instances of this event. But really the best of the best, the cream of the crop. And Mark, when you look at this field, you have some household names around the world when it comes to golf. And it's amazing what this tournament draws to bring these golfers here to Texas.
Well, you do. You have some names that you do recognize. But I think what's even more interesting about this event is a lot of times you see some up-and-comers. You'll see a lot of really top-ranked juniors that haven't really blossomed totally yet. You may not see them at a World Amateur yet, but they're coming here, and this is like their showcase, and there are some great ones here.
Average age of the participants here is just a little over 19 years old. The oldest player in the field is 35. We've got a couple as young as 14. So the future of golf is on display here. And Jeff, you know from being here, this is sometimes the stepping ground for a lot of these players into international stardom with a lot of players in the professional tours. And as we start to look at some of these teams, especially for those who are logging on and watching us from the United States, captain of the United States, a past participant, now one of the most recognizable faces in all of golf, Paula Creamer. This is a great opportunity for golfers to come compete against the best of the world, see where they stand up, and later on in life, they're making a lot of money sometimes on the pro tours.
I absolutely remember Paula being here in 2003, and her and Jane Park, both very successful. But as you mentioned, Paula certainly blossomed 2 years later onto the LPGA Tour. So many names that we'll see. We'll have a chance over the next few days to mention some of those. But you go back to the initial one, which Lorena Ochoa led Mexico to victory, and obviously the #1 ranked player in the Women's Tour. Brant Snedeker was on the men's side of that 2003 team with Paula. So there is a lot of future stars going to be walking the links here at Whispering Pines.
2003, the last time the United States lifted the championship. England has got back-to-back champions, and as we start to look at this format where they are already at the top of the leaderboard today, making a couple of birdies. Mark, as we look at this field and we look at the format where we're going to be covering today, a couple of countries maybe that you're looking at to take the lead here early on and maybe set a statement here early morning with some of the groups that are out there. There are a couple of countries that I think a lot of people are going to be focusing on to see claiming the hardware towards the end.
Well, I think you just mentioned England is a team to really look at, and of course they've also got the best name here in Stiggy Hodgson. I mean, what a great name. And so they're a team we definitely want to look at. Italy is a team that I think, especially on the men's side, is quite strong. And you know, the United States is a very young team. And you've got the 2 best, the #1 ranked junior players, men's, or you know, it's weird because we're in a men's and women's event, and yet as juniors they still refer to them as boys and girls.
Right.
But we're going to refer to them as men and women here because they're on the big international stage, and they are the top juniors both men's and women's. So the United States, it's going to be interesting to see how they perform.
And we're going to cover a lot of those individual stories as we see it. Again, with 4 days of coverage, a lot of chances for us to focus on the accomplishments of these great individual players. Our coverage here at Whispering Pines consists of 4 holes. We'll be covering the last 4 holes on this gorgeous layout. The men are playing it today from about 7,300 yards total. It's a par 72. The women a little bit over 6,400 yards. Also a par 72 for them, and a very interesting dynamic of holes coming down. Again, we mentioned the format. There is a men's division, there is a women's division, but most importantly, they are competing as a country for that overall international championship. And it's a 2 best ball over a 2 better ball type format if it really boils down to it. So you'll have 2 female participants, 2 male participants. They are playing a best ball format, and they are not playing as a full team. They'll be playing with a counterpart from the other team, men's and women's, going off in alternating order. So you will have 2 scores combined for the overall international score. So as we said, anybody that's familiar with the game, that plays at home in their local games or at their local clubs, best ball is generally the format of choice when you're out playing your Sunday or Saturday foursome. And it's a great opportunity for these players who are so accustomed to playing individually in either stroke play or match play events to come out here and be a little bit more aggressive. We should see a lot of birdies. There's a look at the par 3 16th. Is the second of back-to-back par 3s at 15 and 16. If the pins are accessible today, especially on 16, the pin pretty accessible over there in the middle right portion of that green, although it plays 220 for the men from the back and 180 for the women to the middle of that green. And then they'll move forward to the par 5 17th, which is a bear of a hole for the men from the back tees. It is 590 yards for the men. There's a look from the women's tee at 16. 495 yards for the women. But one of the bigger birdie holes, and a couple of those birdies that we should see down the stretch, especially on Saturday when we wrap up this tournament. 17 is going to be a big swing hole for the players out there. And, Jeff, you've seen that in past competitions, because we'll get to 18 in a second, how difficult that is. But a look from the men's tee at 17. Par 5s are important in best ball play. If you don't make a birdie on a lot of the par 5s out here, you're losing a shot to the field.
And as you mentioned, the whole location here is very accessible today on the front left, but they are playing the back tee on 17. I would not be surprised if the setup crew on the final round would sneak that tee up to the 560 tee, and that is a reachable par 5. As you can see from the shot there, Will and Mark, there is absolutely no wind here today, which is, number one, unusual, and number two, again, will lead to some great scoring opportunities. But as you can see on the 17th green, the hole is probably in one of its most accessible locations there on that front left, and maybe part of the flattest part of the green there. So we should see a lot of birdies on 17 today.
Go ahead, Mark.
Something that I think is fascinating, you talked about the team aspect before, and Jeff, this is really a question for you, because we talked about, the players are going to read each other's putts and help each other, but what exactly are their limitations? Because yesterday, Jordan Spieth was talking about this while he was in his practice round. Can he actually stand behind on my putt, and what can he and can't do? Why don't you explain for us what they are allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do?
Well, they can certainly help each other, and there is a designated team captain. We've mentioned Paula Kramer, who is the U.S. team captain, and most of the countries do send a captain, and the local rule is implemented, which allows them to give advice to the point of, hit a 7-iron versus an 8. Not just the caddy and the player or the partners that are out there, but the captain as well. But to specifically answer your question, if Ben is lining up a putt, Jordan can certainly help him, can say, I think it's going to go right, left, whatever. But when Ben gets over the ball, Jordan cannot be directly on the line or an extension of the line behind the ball. He has to step to the side, much as you see the tour players, their caddy will step to the side. Jordan would have to do the same thing. He could not, if they were on the same line, he would not be able to stand directly behind Ben while he was putting and watch that. He would have to step aside.
And a very interesting thing to watch is how these two players, or the partners, as you will, interact with a lot of people, because in many of these cases, especially in some countries where these are the best two players representative of their country, they've spent almost their entire life competing against each other, and the last time they probably played together in a group, they were going head-to-head. We have a lot of situations out here where there are players from countries that just months ago were the champion and runner-up of their respective country's amateur championship, and they're playing together now as teammates. They're obviously familiar with the games of one another, but it makes for a very interesting dynamic as they have to come together. Now, a lot of the European players here, with so much team competition, especially in Europe, very familiar to playing with one another as a team. And as we've seen, especially in a lot of the international team competitions that are made so popular around the world, especially like the Ryder Cup, talent doesn't mean as much if you can play as well as a team. And if there are some players out here that are used to hamming and egging around a golf course, they can make a lot of noise over a much more heralded, talented team out here.
Don't overlook the Asians either. The Koreans, the team from Chinese Taipei is very young, but they are, as you pointed out, Will, much more accustomed to playing together as a team as opposed to the Europeans, certainly the Americans. And some of the Western European guys and gals have a little more experience, but it's going to be a lot of fun.